All right, so there are 4 problems on your circle review homework in which they're going to ask you to find the radius, diameter, area, and circumference, but instead of just giving you the circle, they're giving you maybe a different part of the circle that you wouldn't normally use. I'm going to show you how you can do problems that are similar to the ones in your homework. So the first one says, find the radius of a circle if it has a circumference of 80 pi. So remember, your circumference formula is pi times diameter. So that means I should be able to plug 80 pi, which is the circumference, in for C and get this. 80 pi equals pi times diameter. Now, to solve for the diameter, I could divide both sides by pi. Both sides have a pi symbol because the circumference was given to us in terms of pi. So all I have to do is cancel out the pi symbols. I don't even have to use the calculator for that. And I'll get 80 equals the diameter. So we know the diameter of this circle must be 80. It wants the radius. So we'll take 80 and we'll divide it by 2. And that'll give us the radius to be 40 feet. Okay, so you have one very similar to that. You just have to divide by pi, and then that'll give you the diameter. And you can find the radius if you know the diameter. The next one says, find the diameter of a circle if it has an area of 36 pi square meters. So they've switched it up and they've given us the area. Now the area formula of a circle is A equals pi r squared. So because the area is 36 pi, we can plug that in for the A in our formula, and we'll get this. 36 pi equals pi r squared. Again, we can work backwards. Divide by pi, and that'll tell us what our r squared is. Divide by pi, divide by pi. Don't even need a calculator for that part because I can just cancel out the pi symbols, and that gives us 36 equals r squared. Now, if you don't know what number times itself, or what number squared gives you 36, use the square root button on your calculator. That is the opposite of squaring a number, and that will tell you that our radius has to be 6. Of course, 6 times 6 gives you 36. Now, if the radius is 6 and they're asking for the diameter, double that, and that makes the diameter 12 meters. So divide by pi, square root to find your radius. That's the opposite of squaring. And then once you have your radius, you can find the diameter. The next one, find the area of a circle if it has a circumference of 16 pi yards. So they're telling us the circumference and they're asking us for the area. The circumference formula is pi times diameter. So I can take this 16 pi and plug it in and get this. 16 pi equals pi times diameter. Hopefully you're starting to catch on. There's a theme. Every time you have to work backwards when you're working with circles, you end up dividing by pi instead of multiplying. So we're going to divide by pi. We're going to divide by pi, and that's going to tell us the diameter is 16. And that means that if we divide by 2, the radius is 8. So that problem is exactly like the one we did up here, where it asked us for the radius. We had to divide by pi and then divide by 2. But this one says, what is the area? So we have to go a step farther. So the area formula is pi r squared. Now that we know the radius, plug the radius in, pi times 8 squared. 8 squared is 64, 8 times 8. And pi times 64 will give us our answer. Of course, we're using 3.14, but you can use the pi button if you'd like to. And that's going to give us 200.96 yards squared. So do what we did in the first problem, which is work backwards to find your diameter. Divide it by 2 to find your radius, and then plug in your radius to find your area. And then lastly, find the circumference if the circle has an area of 121 pi square feet. So the area formula is pi times radius squared. So we're going to plug 121 pi in for our A and get 121 pi equals pi r squared. Again, not a coincidence here. We have to divide by pi, and because they've written their answer in terms of pi, we just get to mark those out. And that tells us that the radius squared is 121. Can you think of a number that when you times it by itself or square it is 121? Well, if you can't, you can square root both sides, but you should recognize 121 as 11 times 11. So our radius is going to be 11. And if we double that, that'll make the diameter 22. Now, why am I doing that? Well, that's exactly what we did in this problem, right? We divided by pi, and we square rooted, and we got our radius to be 6, and we said that the diameter would be double that. Well, this problem is just an extension of that one. It asks us for the circumference, and the circumference formula is pi times diameter. So that's why I'm using 22 instead of 11. All I have to do is plug the 22 in for the diameter, and 22 times pi is 69.08. So the circumference would be 69.08. So all four of these problems are similar to the ones that you have in your circle review homework. So refer back to this video if you need to, as many times as you need to help you solve these problems.